Even you have a couple more people in the waiting room other than Becky? Or one other person? Hey, if y'all don't mind, now, as always happens with a call, now my phone is blowing up with all the people going, I missed registration. So I'm going to do those just real quick here. I have it pre-posted, so I can just paste and click. So bear with me while I do 4 of them. We will get started. Okay. Anybody who texts me now is out of luck, y'all. They'll have to catch the video. All right, let's get started. So good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for GC Sage Conversations with the Candidates. In order to be sure we have plenty of time for each of our candidates to chat, we're going to go ahead and get started. As you know, advocacy is a pillar of SAGE's mission, and it is especially important for families of gifted and talented students to recognize that school districts in Texas do not receive designated state or federal funding for gifted and advanced academics programs. We rely on our school board to support and fund these programs. Therefore, annually, we host a forum of the candidates for GCISD School Board of Trustees. So you can get to know them, hear their views, and engage in a conversation about the issues near and dear to our community. SAGE is celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, and our mission and objectives are the same as they were when we began. We continue to represent the GT parent voice. Unfortunately, as public education continues to face potential budget cuts, parent involvement in our volunteer-run organization continues to be the key to protecting the future of GT services in our district and every district across the state of Texas. I hope those of you who are joining us this evening who are not currently members of GC Sage will give serious consideration to joining us. And we are currently offering a membership special for anyone who joins between today and the end of this school year. You will receive your membership throughout all of next year for that same low price of $20. And you can find more information on that by going to gc-sage.org. So as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, GC Sage does not favor, oppose, or endorse any candidates. We strive to provide information to our community about all candidates who are seeking public office. All trustee candidates for this year's GCISD board elections were invited to participate in tonight's conversation. They were also invited to submit a written or videotaped piece that would provide an overview of their perspective on GT and advanced academics. So I would encourage everyone to head to our website and check out our voter guide. It contains information on all the local races in our community. So this evening, we have 3 candidates who have decided to join us for our conversations, and we've used a randomized number sequencer to determine the order they will go in. Our first candidate is Sergio Harris. Second will be Becky St. John, and Mindy McClure will go third. Some quick rules, and then we're going to hand it over to our first candidate. Each candidate has been given 20 minutes to speak with you. All candidates have been given access to a list of topics of interest to our community, as well as any questions that you submitted via our registration process as of noon on Tuesday. The candidate will lead the conversation, and they may ask for additional questions or comments from the audience via the chat function. Today's conversation is solely an opportunity to hear candidates' perspectives on GT advanced academic issues for the purpose of voter education. The audience has been asked to keep their video on and their audio off. If you don't want to have your video on, that's cool. It's just, I think sometimes for this speaker, if they can see that they're connecting with you, that's kind of nice, but don't feel pressure. If you don't want to turn it on, for all of them, so they'll know we're nodding, listening. So you, as an audience, you can use the chat function to ask a topical question. Just remember the chat will be seen by all, and the candidate will decide which questions from the audience to answer verbally. And as a reminder, we will be if you have a question that you would like to ask to each of the three candidates, then I'm going to ask you to kind of cut and paste and resubmit that so that the people who go second and third aren't trying to look back through a chat that could be really long for them. So a couple more pointers. We ask the audience to maintain an atmosphere of respect. The timekeeper is going to give a 2-minute warning as we near the 20-minute mark, at which time the candidate will wrap up their remaining thoughts and we'll move on to the next candidate who will be joining us. This virtual meeting is being recorded and we will be posting it on the SAGE website and also on our social media. We ask that we all have grace and patience for any kind of technology issues. We'll try to get them resolved as quickly as possible, and we've made provisions to ensure that each candidate has access to their full 20 minutes. So we're ready to get started, and it is my honor to turn the chat over to our first candidate, Sergio Harris. And Mr. Harris, you are welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Awesome. How's everybody doing this evening? I hope everybody's doing excellent. I feel like I'm right at home right now. I'm a teacher. I'm still at work. I don't know if y'all can tell that I'm in my classroom right now. And seeing all these black boxes with their mics off, it's like, it's giving me vibes like I'm in my classroom for real. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself before we get started talking about our GT students and Aspire. Of course, my name is Sergio Harris. I'm running for School Board Place 1. I have lived in Grapevine for the last 8.5 years. I love Grapevine. I love the entire community of GCISD. I think the entire community is wonderful, all the way down from ULIS to the small part of Hearst that we also carry. I just love the community. I love the entire school district. I think it's great. I am a veteran. I was in the military for 8 years. I was an Army medic. I served this country proudly. I was able to meet wonderful people from all over the world and collaborate with wonderful people all over the world. And I think that's a valuable tool to have, especially when you're dealing with young people, especially as diverse as Grapevine is. I think that's a great attribute to have. I'm also a current teacher, as you guys heard earlier. I would be the only current teacher on the school board if I was elected to the school board. I think that is a great tool to have because you can actually advocate for the students, teachers, and parents in the district in ways that the school board may not necessarily be able to because they don't entirely relate because they don't have boots on the ground. I'm married to my lovely wife, Christy. We've been married for 13 years. We have 2 boys that are also current students in the district at Silver Lake Elementary School. I took an interest in becoming a part of the GCISD school board when my boys started going to school in GCISD. I wanted to make sure that they are receiving the best education that they can. And I feel like I have a vested interest in that since my boys are there and I'm a teacher and I just want the best education for every child in Texas, in the world. Okay, so the pleasantries are out of the way, right? I'm sure y'all want to hear the meat and potatoes of what we came here to talk about. So the first thing is, I know one of the questions was about Aspire and supporting them financially. I think that would we'd have to take a long, hard look at the budget and make sure that we can allocate money that we are able to continue to support this program. I don't see it as, to me, it's not an option. It's something that I think we definitely need to do. We need to make sure that we have programs in place, the Aspire program in place, because we want to, again, advocate for all of our students within the district. You know, kids come in a variety of different ways. They all learn different. And we want to make sure that we are advocating and providing the best venues for each child to learn. So, I'm sorry. When we start talking about the children that are involved in Aspire and we start looking at ways to strengthen the intersection between advanced academics and the special services department, I think we need to start looking at ways to incorporate inclusion into the school. I think co-teaching is a wonderful thing to have, especially when we're talking about our GT kids, because GT kids they are phenomenal learners, and they are going to learn the way that they are going to learn. And I think if teachers can collaborate and work together and hit these students in ways that keeps them on their toes, because we all know GT students, if they're not feeling you, if they're not feeling your class, they will shut down on you, and they will kind of go and do their own thing. And you, not saying you may get discipline problems, but you may get a level of disrespect as a teacher that you wouldn't like. So it's important that we keep these kids like stimulated in the classroom. And so that's going to take some ingenuity, and that's going to take some creativity that I think we definitely want to make sure that our students have. One thing that I think that I would change about the GT process and the way we identify these kids is, I think once we identify a kid as GT, we put that GT label on them across the board. And I think we need to maybe look at a child being GT in one subject, but not being GT in another. And so we need to, especially in the early years when they're in elementary and they have been identified, and that is the time when they're supposed to explore things that they may be interested in. That is the time to determine what subject that kid may be GT in. Again, it may be across the board. They may be GT in every subject, but again, every child is different. And again, we want to make sure that we are accommodating our students the best way that we can. So if that means our son or our daughter is only GT in history, then we want to make sure that we are putting them in these GT history classes, and not sticking them in a GT math class where, again, you may find that child is not interested in that subject, and then you get not the best environment for that young person. As far as supporting the people on campuses like Glen Hope, Cross Timbers Middle School, Grapevine High School, I think a great way to do that is to start from the top. And I mean the administrators that are at the school. I think it would be great if the administrators at the school had a GT background, whether it be the principal at one point in time was a GT student themselves, or whether that principal was a GT teacher at one point in time, and then have that trickle down to the teachers, because we all want advocacy from top to bottom. That's why Grapevine is a great district that it is. And if you love your job, it's probably because you're getting great leadership, and your leadership is advocating for you. So it is an excellent idea to have the administrators and the teachers be advocates for the students by having some intricate knowledge of GT, because they've been there. So they understand what these kids are going through, the struggles that they may have, or the concerns that they may have. And that way they can advocate for certain programs or for certain tools or supplies for these kids. I think we can enhance I think COVID has really hurt the Aspire program. And it's not just COVID that has hurt the Aspire program. I think in the end, the Aspire program is really being hurt by dollars in this situation. There's so much push for these kids to take AP classes because the district gets more money for how many kids pass the AP test with 3s, that they're losing the child in the whole thing, in the whole sense of getting finances for the kids. And we all know how important finances are to keeping the school district open. But again, we want to make sure that we are servicing all of our students. That's the important thing. So I think we need to find additional ways to fund the Aspire program and the GT program, by maybe looking into getting some grants from businesses that are, I guess, in tune with the GT child. Try saying that 5 times real fast. But with the GT child, because there are plenty of businesses and programs out there where these kids thrive, where they kind of gravitate towards. So of course that's going to take some research on everybody's part, trying to find these businesses that are willing to sponsor our kids and provide grants for our kids so that our kids can continue to have a great education. Where I see the biggest problems are in Grapevine for me right now is going back to this pandemic is mental health, the mental health of our students. A lot of times GT students, they can be very sensitive to certain things. They can, react very strongly one way or the other. And so this pandemic has completely hit everybody really, really hard, from parents to teachers to students on down the line. So I think it is important that we are putting services in place that address these issues, because yes, we're slowly but surely coming out of this pandemic, but we all know that this pandemic has left scars on our students. And scars take a long time to heal. Sometimes they never heal. So we want to make sure that we are putting programs in place that give our students the best opportunity to address the issues in a healthy manner. Another thing that I think GCISD can do well is I think that we can add diversity to the school district. And I don't mean that in the sense of race at all. I mean that in the sense of culture. Having people from a variety of different backgrounds, even from different parts of the country. We all know people in Boston act nothing like people in Texas. And so just allowing these kids to interact with people that are not from the same area that they are is a tremendous, and I mean, it is a tremendous attribute for these kids to have, because we all know when they graduate and they go to college or they go and they get their career, they're going to interact with people from all over the world. So we want to make sure that we are setting our students up for success by providing them the best real world experience that we can. And I think we can do that by improving the diversity and culture, just the spread of culture in GCISD. I think another thing that our school district can do well is we can continue to hire the best teachers. GCISD, as you all know, is one of the best school districts in Texas. Top 100 jobs, right? We all know that. And so that means we are teaching students to the best of the ability of anybody in the entire state. So we want to make sure that we are bringing back that talent that we have matured and grown and cultivated in the school district, so that they can come back and they can continue to the great tradition that we have here at GCISD. If elected, I think I want to address the underrepresented that we have in the school district. I know that is a big concern, because a lot of people in GCISD are not necessarily exposed to people that are not like them. And so I think it is great for me, because as we can see clearly, I'm a minority in the room and I'm a minority in teaching. Teaching is predominantly female. And so having a male on campus interact with students, especially on the elementary school level, is very, very vital, because that interaction that students get with male teachers, they don't really get that usually until later in middle school or even in high school. So being able to provide that interaction with my students, or excuse me, with the students in the district, I think is an awesome, awesome thing that can occur in the district. I'm going to open it up to questions if anybody has any questions. Let me scroll through a little bit. So someone asked me where I teach. I teach at Irving ISD. I teach at MacArthur High School. I'm a US history teacher. So my next question. The next question says, my child qualified for GT during her elementary years, but she decided to exit the program because she said it was too boring. Entrance to GT or Aspire program is measured by testing, but it is reciprocal. The point of Aspire and GT is to ensure the children are being challenged and educated in ways that align with their abilities. How do you how do you think we can address or improve retention and ensure that children remain challenged in these programs? So this again goes back to hiring the best teachers. And I think a lot of times we get caught up on experience of teachers, which experience is very, very important. But the thing about young teachers is young teachers come in and they come in with new ideas. That is why I think it is important to collaborate and co-teach, because old teachers, of course, they bring that experience that you cannot substitute for. But then young teachers will come in and they bring new novel ideas. And I think if we can combine those two things together, we will end up with a fantastic program, a better program than we already have. So as far as the boring thing, we just need to find the best teachers that are going to be creative and get our GT kids thinking, because like I said earlier, if a GT kid is bored, they will check out on you, and then they will go back and they will go into regular classes, and they may not necessarily, they'll fly through a regulars class, but it's not the same, and it's not the challenge that they need to be even more successful in their life. Okay, let me see what else we got. Okay, I have a fourth grader in GT. She is extraordinarily gifted in reading, writing, but just slightly above average in math and science. One thing I've never understood in our district is why we lump all GT kids together in the same group where they work on the same assignments. A scholar who has 1/4 in math is doing the same work as a scholar who has is gifted in art. Candidates, how can we better serve our GT elementary age kids in the areas that they are applicable to, applicable to them? So as I said earlier, we talked about testing these kids on where they need to be. Like I said earlier, not every kid is GT across the board. So when we are deciding what interests that our children have, we want to make sure that we are really studying that and putting them where they need to be. Because to me, I agree with you 100%, Lauren. It makes no sense for us to have these GT kids in a room that they don't want to be in, and it makes no sense to have them with students that are not, I don't want to say below them or beneath them, but not on the same level as them. Because we know, again, how the word I want to use, I don't want to say volatile, but we know how their attitudes can be. If they feel like someone is kind of holding them back, you will kind of see them act out, and they will kind of express how they feel. Sometimes what is the best for mental health is not what is best for achieving highest grades or standardized test accolades. How can we better balance the two in a community that values high achievement over all else? I am a teacher. One of the last things that I do in a day is teach. I am a therapist for my students. Sometimes I'm a vending machine for my students. Sometimes I'm a motivator for my students. And then at the end of the day, I'm a teacher for my students. If the kids don't feel safe, if they're hungry, if they're mad, if they're upset, if Julie just broke up with them, if you name it, all these, sorry, Julie, all these things, if they have any of these things going on with them, remember, you are at the mercy. In my case, I'm at the mercy of 16 and 17-year-olds. And so you have to remember that. So you have to meet children where they are, and then you have to lift them up to where you want them to be. That is your number one goal as a teacher. Meet the kid where they are. It is not the kid's job to meet you where you are. And so if our students are having mental issues, or they're just not there today, your job is to motivate that kid and get that kid where you want them to be. And then once you got that kid where you want them to be, you take them to the next level. That's what we want to do. Okay. what are the two biggest mistakes or problems that you've seen made by current GCISD trustees? I can't say that our trustees are terrible or have done anything bad. You know, I don't know all of the trustees. One thing I can say is, you know, you want to make sure that you are putting the safety of our students above all else, especially in the middle of this pandemic. We want to make sure that we are putting the safety of our students as well as our staff. So it's important that we do that. And I guess I'll kind of just leave that statement at that. We want to make sure that we're providing a safe working environment for everyone. This will probably be the last question. Please speak on suggestions for better identifying elementary school age children who may benefit from GT services. We already have an excellent way of identifying students who are maybe qualified for GT programs, but I also think we need to consider other avenues, because we cannot take a snapshot of our students where the person identifying the child is there for a day or 15 minutes in a class period, and it's like, oh, that kid is GT. This needs to be a more extensive program where we're talking to the teachers, we're talking to counselors, we're talking to their specialist teachers, we're talking to their parents, because they can provide information that 5-minute snapshot will never be able to acknowledge. Okay. All yours, Julie. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergio. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. And we're going to ask you, we're going to let Mrs. St. John come in. All right, we'll give Becky just a second to make sure her camera's up. There she is. I see her. Let me just real quick, Becky, make you a co-host so that you can unmute yourself. There you go. That should work. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
All right, there we go.
It's all yours.
All right. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for hosting this. I really appreciate Sage doing this every year. It's incredibly important that we have these conversations, and I like the format that y'all use. I think this generates a real conversational feel, and hopefully will give parents an opportunity to ask some additional questions other than the ones that we were already kind of given. So I think the first thing I want to say is happy GT Awareness Week. So yay. I've been seeing the social media being pushed out, so that's really good. So you know, this has been a rough year. It's been a rough year on everybody, and I think especially for those of us that have GT students, maybe even rougher, and then just for anybody that's got a kid in advanced classes, this has been a tough year. And you want to make sure that your kids are getting a full year of growth out of the year in the classroom. And, you know, we don't know for sure that that's happened. And we're going to have to find that out. I don't know that STAR is completely the way to do that. And after this week's fiasco, it makes me less confident in the test, but you know, hopefully we'll get some data out of that. But the news on that front is not all bad. I think we had a number of kids find out that some sort of hybrid model could work really well for them. And, you know, we've kind of maybe talked about these kinds of opportunities in the past, but you know, it's nothing like just getting shoved into it by a global pandemic to see how this mix of digital platform and in-person learning can actually work. And of course, that's a little bit different model than what our university prep is set up to be. But some kids really found their stride with the ability. That's the self-motivated learners, right? And I don't have those very much in my house. Um, so it's a mixed bag, but certainly for those self-motivated learners, the ability to come into the classroom digitally and then get the material from the teacher and then be able to go back and work on it on their own at their own pace. Some kids were getting done with everything by noon, and I mean that's wonderful. The danger there is to make sure that they're still being challenged, right? I think the district found its stride a little bit better as the year went along. This was an incredible trial by fire for every single one of our educators, every single one of our parents, every single one of our students. And, you know, I think we'll be looking back on lessons learned for a long time. So y'all were kind enough to provide some kind of overview questions. And so I do kind of want to go through these, but I also want to make sure we have enough time for audience questions as well. It looks like there's about 50 people on here. So thank you all for carving out the time to attend this. I know we all have busy schedules and I really appreciate everyone being here. The first question that was given to us was, what are the most important issues at hand for gifted, aspire, accelerated courses, and advanced placement? So I will tell you truly what I see at a really high level is this need for balance. How do we balance taking accelerated courses and APs with the other activities that kids are interested in, as well as the pressure that is sometimes put upon these students, wherever the source of that pressure comes from, to take 6 or 7 AP classes, or to, I'm going to have to give up something in order to be enrolled in the GT section of this class offering. So I think that's truly the biggest issue with taking AP, advanced academic courses, and GT courses, is finding that balance that works best for the student. The next question was district or state spending. Do you think current levels of spending should be different? If so, what priority level would you place on gifted services? What is your commitment to continuing the current level? Do you anticipate the district will need to cut programs? What would you recommend? How can we move a greater percentage of the budget to our teachers? Will you commit to doing this, and where will that money come from? So let me answer that last part first. So the state in House Bill 3 that was passed in the last legislative session put aside some monies in a program called the Teacher Incentive Allotment. And I'm not wholly convinced that it is, it relies pretty heavily on test scores. Not a big fan of doing things that way, but if there's some significant money out there, I certainly want to see us be able to go for that. We did apply to be one of the cohorts, and we were pushed into cohort E, which is the year 2023. The state is focusing pretty heavily on high need areas and rural districts. And unfortunately, we don't fit either one of those definitions. I'd beg to differ with our Robin Hood payment, but we're a little bit outnumbered still in the state capital and always will be. And so, that's always an issue we have to be concerned about. And when we start talking about, and there were some additional questions that we were given about advocating at the state level, and I'll just roll that in here. So for those of you who were really connected in with the last legislative session, House Bill 3 was a really tough pill for GT families to swallow, because what House Bill 3 did is it eliminated the GT allotment. It eliminated the GT weight. And I really struggled with that. The issue, though, became that the state was in very good faith trying to give school districts more local control and local ability to manage their budgets where they saw the needs most in their districts. And so the thing they really didn't want to talk about was the fact that GT funding was capped at 5% of student enrollment. And so it didn't matter how many students you had identified. So first of all, magically, every school district identified 5% of their kids as gifted and talented, so they could go get the 5% allotted cap. But in GCISD, we've got 20% of our kids identified as GT. And we've created the Aspire Academy. We're well known for our GT services in the regular classroom outside of the academy model. And so people are moving here for our GT services. And when you have 20% of your students identified, that 5% cap, it wasn't helping us at all. And the state was able, by eliminating some of those weights, they did actually dump more money into our school district than we were getting for the GT allotment. So GCISD did benefit with more money, but they did take out that label, and they left other labels in. And so that was a really, really tough thing to have to deal with. At the end of the day, House Bill 3 was a good deal for GCISD, and it was important that it be passed. So that just really goes to show you how difficult some of those decisions are down in Austin. It's not as easy as it sounds. I really appreciate the incredible work that Sage did 2 years ago advocating on behalf of gifted students. You made your voices heard, and I absolutely guarantee you that it made a difference that those funding levels that they were committing to school districts stayed at a higher level to compensate for that weight removal. Then I think if we hadn't advocated, they might have just cut the weight and not added any additional funding in. So I really appreciate Sage working with me as a trustee and with our state representatives, our state senators, especially Giovanni Capriglione and Beverly Powell, on making sure that we got our fair share of funding. So the next question was professional development of teachers. Universities education bachelor's degree programs typically require little coursework or training in the area of supporting gifted learners. So this is actually an interesting conversation that is starting to happen across the board, in that what is the alignment, and this is even outside of the GT arena, and this is across the board, what is the alignment, not just K-12, but pre-K 16? Historically, secondary or K-12 education really has not talked very much with post-secondary. We've operated in our own bubbles, and I think it's become increasingly apparent that we can't do that, especially because once kids get into college, that's where they are being prepared to come back and teach in our schools. And so what I'm hopeful, and this may be another benefit or silver lining, so to speak, of the pandemic, is that we re-examine a pretty good chunk of the training that we are providing to teachers in college. Who would have thought last year that teachers being able to be incredibly versed in digital platforms, video design, instructional content on a video was going to be a highly desirable just a highly desirable trait. And now, even my own kids tell me, hey, the teachers that are rocking the technology, those are the classrooms that I'm doing the best in. So it's clearly, when you're listening to that student voice, even the kids are noticing that they know what good teaching looks like, and they want that. Social emotional support. So what are your ideas for ways to support the social and emotional intensities of gifted students? So, regardless of what's happening in the education certification realm, teachers are required to have, the 30 hours of foundational and then 6-hour update. But I gotta tell you, from a parent perspective, a lot of times I feel like, where's my professional development? Um, it's tough having a GT kid. Um, it's difficult sometimes to understand, okay, are you just mad today, or is there something else going on that we need to address? And I would love to see uh, more opportunities for parental presentations on how to deal with those social and emotional differences. It can be sometimes difficult if you don't have a GT kid to understand that. There's this misconception that, oh, GT kids, they're all fine, they're doing great, we don't need to worry about them. And that's actually not the case at all. We should be worrying about every kid. And each kid has different needs. That's fine. And GT kids tend to have, the needs from social and emotional support. Um, let's see, elementary GT lead. What is your support for elementary students who are identified as gifted and need services such as extra critical thinking challenges and social emotional support? So again, going back on the social emotional side, that training is essential, and ensuring that the classrooms where GT kids are present, that those teachers have the training, and also making sure, especially on our campuses where we may have a higher than average or typical GT population, that those counselors are really aware of what's going on too. I would say, especially not only at the elementary level, but across the board, you don't want disciplinary issues being treated without knowing that maybe, hey, there's a root cause that isn't, that's not being met. So again, though, regard to the GT lead and the pullout, so I think we have to be careful. Sometimes I hear, let's stick all the GT kids in one class. The issue then kind of becomes, I think clustering is important. I think when you put all the kids together in one class, you lose a little bit of the enrichment that happens. If you travel in a bubble, K through 12, I don't know that that's preparing you adequately for life and post-secondary education, because not everyone that our kids will meet are going to be GT people. And so that's a pretty important thing. The Aspire Academy. Explain your support for the Aspire Academy. Do you agree with the changes in the review? Okay, the review was like 5 pages long, and I really appreciate the parents that put all the hard work into that. So, the board will be taking a look at that. I can tell you, well, obviously, I supported the development and the creation of the Aspire Academy. It's been just an incredible gem to have here in GCISD. It's been a great choice. We've had lots of kids qualify for it and then say, hey, I think I want to stay on my home campus. I want to pursue a different route. And I love that we are giving kids opportunities, for choice. So some of the recommendations in there, needing to make sure that kids are being challenged. That's a tough one. The kids at the Aspire Academy are really operating at a really, really high level. And so ensuring that they are being challenged and being able to go above and beyond their typical grade level, a 5th grader that's doing 7th or 8th grade math or 7th or 8th grade level writing. We've got to be able to find ways to support that. And I will say that I think the Aspire Academy model is a really good place to address that, because that does give us a little bit more flexibility and freedom there at Glen Hope and then Cross Timbers and then at Grapevine High School to focus on that group of kids that's in the Aspire Academy cohort, while also still providing GT services for kids aren't in the academy, as well as all the other kids that are taking advanced academics. I think it's really important to remember that that only 20% of our student population is identified as GT, yet we have well over 50-60% of our kids in some cases participating in advanced academics. I mean, that includes, you're an 8th grader taking biology 1 and algebra 1, or you're a kid that's telescoping in math. So, we've got to make sure that those, advanced academics is for every kid. Just plain and simple. The GT is a program because these kids have been identified as meeting some certain criteria, but every kid is eligible and for and should be taking some sort of advanced academic class. Let's see, advanced placement, secondary level. Many high school students participate in AP. Would you recommend changing anything about the AP program? With regard to the AP program, kind of going back to what I talked about at the very beginning, is the stress, right? We want kids, I think there's some misconception out there that AP is the end all be all, and that if you do not get a 5 by the end of that class on that test, that somehow there's a failure that has happened. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I right off the bat, to me, one of the most important aspects of taking an AP class is the fact that we are preparing kids. Oh my gosh, no way. Okay, I don't even know what time we started. Anyway, finding that balance in taking those AP classes and recognizing that there are other benefits to taking AP than just a 5 on a test. So there we go. All right. Kim, I can't hear you if you're speaking. So.
No, I was just laughing. Okay. I'm sorry. I felt really bad doing it.
No, that's okay. Did I chew up all the time and now we don't have time for questions? Oh.
Yeah. Well, you have like another minute. And Julie's telling
no pressure.
Yeah, thanks. Oh man, let me look at the chat. Let's see. Did talk about that I've learned, I've never heard about, don't learn till next year. Not retaining, it's my creative feel or aspire. We focus too much on challenging things. Oh, that's a really interesting question. Oh, I should have had chat open. I didn't realize it. Oh my gosh. So how can we focus on challenging things so we forget to focus on the basics? That's some really good feedback. And my recommendation on that would be to reach out to your campus and let them know that, hey, just because we're off doing this special project, I don't want to miss out on some of these other things. GT kids tend to learn at a very fast pace anyway. And so, maybe you're not going to spend 5 weeks on a book because the kids are going to breeze through it in 3 days. So, that would be my answer.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Yep. All right. Oh, scheduling. Oh, I would have loved to have talked about it. We're knee deep in that, but y'all know where to find me. So hit me up anytime. Thank y'all so much for hosting this tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Becky. We really appreciate your time as well. And like you said, everybody knows where to find you. So anybody that has additional questions for Becky or Sergio, we'll talk about that at the end on where you guys can find content.
Oh, awesome. So we'll get all the chat questions later. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay. All right. Thanks,
Becky. I'm going to let you lead now so we can let Mindy in.
Awesome. All right.
So it turns out, y'all, when you're talking with gifted folks, 20 minutes just flies by, doesn't it?
Yes, so. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay. How do I do this? Go ahead and let Mindy in. All right. I'm going to get Mindy. Hang on just a second, Mindy. You can't hear me. You can maybe hear me. I'm going to give you, here we go. I'm going to make you a co-host. So now you should be able to unmute yourself. And as soon as you get that done, we will go ahead and start your 20 minutes.
Okay, well, here I am, and thank y'all so much for hosting this forum. It's so good to see everyone's faces. I mean, I really miss being one-on-one again. So this is a treat. We're a step in the right direction. For those of you that I haven't met before, my name's Mindy McClure. I'm seeking re-election to a third term on the GCISD Board of Trustees, Place 1. My husband and I have been married almost 25 years this summer, and he moved me in here to Colleyville, and then my son Kraft started kindergarten that year, and we've been here ever since. All three of my boys are GHS graduates. They all got great educations, but I saw some changes in how we did things here between when my older one went through, and he graduated in 2010, and then I have a 2018 and a 2020 graduate. So that's kind of what prompted me to run for the board originally. I felt like we were doing some things and it was so much better than it was when Kraft originally went through. And I will say that our advanced academics program is one shining example of something we're doing so much better than we did before. So I grew up in Abilene, Texas, and graduated with a law degree from Texas Tech. Go Red Raiders. I never practiced, which is a source of a lot of laughter in this family. My husband was really traveling a lot at the time, and so I do have a bar card. I passed the bar, and I practiced on my kids. And when you're the judge and the prosecutor and the jury, it's very, very satisfying. I mentioned growing up in Abilene, and one kind of amusing tidbit is that back in the late 70s, I was in the inaugural class in Abilene Independent School District's Alternative Learning Program for Gifted Students, the ALPS program. I was in third grade when the program got off the ground, actually fourth grade when the program got off the ground, and it was a 1 day a week pull-out program where we were bused to another school in little small groups, and it was the highlight of my week every week. It just the things that we got to do, the freedom to explore. I mean, and this was early on in gifted education, but it was a highlight, and I'll never forget. So I had this teacher, Mrs. Aldrich, and she was my teacher for all 3 years. And we have now, several years ago, reconnected via Facebook. And so that teacher just played such a role in my development and in, really my love of learning. Wished I had a Mrs. Aldrich every year, but she really did make an impact. So I'm glad that your kids are surrounded with Mrs. Aldriches of their own, because they really mean the world to kids. Back to, let me just check, make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay, so anyways, so here I did take that class, did the pull-out program, then of course went on to middle school and high school, and there was nothing. And so I really was that kid who was bright, obviously, but not motivated. If the class wasn't my strength, I was tuned out completely. So I think my mother really worried that I would never pass the math classes to graduate, because a lot of the times I'd have that math book up and I'd have whatever book I was reading inside of it. And, the teacher was talking in the front and I'm just reading away. And I wish I could say that I'd ever, changed that, but I didn't. I took tax law at Tech, and oh man, that was a dry subject. And so I just barely coasted through. And then I got a little worried when I went to take the bar, because tax law wasn't on the bar when I took it, but it was going to be the next year. And so I thought, oh man, if I don't make it this go round, I may never make it at all. So anyways, that's a little bit about me personally. And just to say that I not only know as a parent what some of you all struggle with, parenting your gifted children, that I think I was the one that my parents struggled with as well. So I have 3 very different boys that went through this district, and they got great educations, but the way that we're personalizing things now, it's important. I mean, that engages kids, and that's what they need. And we were lacking that for quite some time, but now I love that it's a focus of our district. I'm really excited about our LEAD 2.0 goals, because a lot of the questions I saw you guys referencing here, I think they're really going to be hit head on with that first goal of removing these barriers and obstacles to education. I consider it our duty to provide the best gifted education that we possibly can to these students. I mean, that is a need, just like dyslexia services are a need. I mean, this is not something that is debatable in any way, shape, or form. We have to do it. It's imperative that we do it. I know that a lot of you were concerned when the allotment was removed in the last session, and I shared that concern with you because we know crazy things can happen in a session, and just because a program is supposed to be there, when they start to cut, you just don't really know what's going to happen. I feel better about this session because it looks like the budget is going to be sufficient, but I think it's something that we should always really pay attention to. And I know that you all at Sage do a great job of keeping people focused on that, keeping our district focused on that. And I think that's a huge important role for Sage and for the district to advocate on behalf of our gifted students. Sage is an amazing organization, and I say that because I knew the district pre-Sage. And what you all have been able to do in terms of parental involvement and in terms of connecting the administration with the parents and sharing information back and forth, it goes so far beyond an advocacy level. It's such a gift to these parents to be able to have this opportunity to come together and to not feel like you're parenting in a vacuum, that, you know, things that you're experiencing are normal. And it's just a different parenting style when you're parenting a highly gifted child. And there's definitely, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. And I just think to have that support system in place provides such an important role organization for our parents to be a part of. I appreciate too y'all's emphasis on the 2E population, because I think that committee is going to grow and become just as important to this district as Sage is right now. I have my youngest, Jay McClure, he was not identified GT, and I am convinced beyond a doubt that it was his dysgraphia that kept him from being identified early on. As he overcame those struggles and became more confident, he grew as a student and ended up taking some advanced courses. But I think had he had those services early on and not felt like he was such a failure because reading just didn't come together for him, spelling just didn't come together for him, I think it would have made a huge difference just on his emotional health. I mean, he was just really a quiet, kind of withdrawn person in elementary school, wasn't a lover of school in any way, shape, or form. And then he became this uber phenomenal debater in high school who could delve in and go deep into these subjects and spend hours upon hours crafting his arguments both ways. And I see so much of what gifted students live for in what he did in his debate courses. So I think that just putting that focus on these populations that are underserved, that's a huge thing, and it's something that we have to do. And I think that we have that in goal 1, and I think then it is also going to be pushed by the 2E committee. And so I was part of the council when that specific position came into being, and I thought that was a great decision then, and I think it's a great decision now. I know that it's been hard to do this during a pandemic, but I think they're going to make progress and just continue to grow and become a Sage-like organization. What other questions here? I'm probably going way too fast, but I mentioned about supporting Aspire financially, serving the kids with. So I think that the biggest challenge that I see, and something that I'm committed to seeing through if reelected, is I feel like our elementary Aspire is really strong. I feel like our middle school and our high school has a long way to go. I think that was very evident in Dr. Kettler's research. He presented to the board in January, just a few short months before everything shut down. But I was fascinated by some of his findings. And I was also really encouraged that our department, you don't bring somebody in to look at your programs like that if you're not going to implement what he finds. So I think we're seeing more of an emphasis on teacher training, which was a shortfall that he discovered. And his findings were pretty brutal. I mean, he was very complimentary when we were doing stuff right, but boy, he was pretty clear about the things that we need to be improving on. I saw where we talk about leadership opportunities, but we weren't really putting those mechanisms in place to give these students those opportunities. Communication, that's another thing. A lot of these kids that come up to high school, let me encourage you, have them join debate. I wish, looking back, I would have made that mandatory for all 3 of my boys, whether they wanted to or not, because it is such a great program to develop them, even as a leadership program, because they have so much ownership and mentorship of the younger students in the program. But that's not what Dr. Kettler said. That's just what Mindy McClure says. So there's that. I feel like I said, this goal 1 is going to be a major focus in our district for the next coming years, and well, all 4 of the goals. But I believe that where we'll see the most growth in our advanced academic programs is through that goal 1. I mean, we need to have our curriculums more aligned. That was one of his findings, and there's no reason not to. So I know that there's been significant teacher training. I know there will be continued significant teacher training, and it's that with our teachers then coming back and all working together that we will see the growth in that program. I do think that there are some, hard discussions to have at the high school level. Perhaps we need to be weighting these GT courses differently so that it's more of an incentive to take, because I think in some of these GT courses, your workload is equivalent to an AP course. It's just going deeper into the material and not doing such a surface level, check those boxes to take the AP test. So that's something that we might put a committee together and have that discussion. Aspire hadn't migrated to the high school the last time they had one of those committees and had those discussions. So that I fully support being a part of that discussion. I think it's an important one. I liked how he pointed out that an AP course load isn't necessarily going to be that attractive to some of your GT kids. Now, some of your kids want to play that game, play the AP game and all. So if we maybe made that equal, they would be more likely to do a GT class. But he was very clear that, the AP is that surface level, and your gifted kids, they want to delve into the material. They want to go deep and really get into it. And I feel like that's truly where they need to be, and we need to probably incentivize them to do that. So really, I guess that's my main focus, I think, is improving what we're doing at the middle school and the high school level. I would love, post-pandemic, I do believe it's so important to get some of these kids some internships, get them, some ability to have some mentor-mentee relationships within the business community here, so they could explore their passions and see if, what really makes them tick. And I also would love to see more opportunities to get out of the classroom and get hands-on in some activities, be it in the medical field, whatever that interest is in. I would just love to be able to provide that for our students. Of course, that all takes funding, which then goes back to Austin. But, to me, it's imperative. We provide the same amount of support to our GT kids as we do to any other segment of our school population. I would also like to see some of those. I know we're testing more students that may not be recommended to begin with, but in the elementary grades at some of our underserved campuses, I know we're testing more kids. I think that needs to happen, has needed to happen. There's no reason that our GT population would be swayed by their socioeconomic status. I mean, let's get the kids in the program that need to be in the program district-wide. When I ran, it was for every single student in this district, and that remains today. And so that is definitely a passion of mine. So I have rambled for a little bit. Does anybody have a question, have a feedback, want to go deeper into something? There's not any questions in the chat?
There are some questions in the chat, yes.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting on the question, can I pull that up? Yes. Oh, it's a I see. That's just a comment. I was also going to say, I think that one of the wonderful things that's happened is Julie Leslie. I think we finally have somebody in the role, and I hope she never, ever, ever, ever leaves. She's the leadership that we needed. She's the one that was confident enough in her abilities to make improvements, to bring in an outsider to tell us where we needed them. I think that's huge, and I think that, we want her to stay forever.
So Mindy, there is one that's a question. Let me know if you can't see it. It starts with great example. You see that?
Okay, most impactful, the first priority, I would say it is getting those curriculum alignments in place. And I do know that they are working on that now. They had a report it's been within the last few months about how that's happening. That's key. Getting all that alignment in place is key. The training, they've sent some people to train last summer, that then we're going to come back and do the trainings, within the district. So that was what his other recommendations to enhance Aspire. Well, like I said, I do think it's the teacher trainings is the most important. I think that perhaps, if a committee gets together and decides that they should weight the GT classes with a higher weighted average than they do now, I feel like that would go a long way to solving the dilemma of, do I take the AP class, or do I take what I'm really passionate about and get to do it with my cohort and not be punished for it, basically. I was going to say some of his other feedback, I loved that he went into our teachers and asked the teachers, what they thought that they needed. And they responded. Oh, here's another. There's now been a message to me concerned about the debate program. And believe me, I share those concerns. Debate was life-changing for my son, Jay. And it's still, he'll debate you. I don't know, we might've created a monster because we debate at the dinner table on a regular basis. But I will do whatever I can to advocate for our debate programs. I'm a believer. And I'm very disappointed about losing the teacher this year. We need an OI teacher and we need a debate teacher. And so if you have children interested in that program, I think that needs to be pushed at the campus level and if necessary at the district level. I don't believe that they're trying to get rid of the debate program. I've heard no talk in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Dr. Ryan brags on it all the time. But it's imperative that we get good teachers hired, and that I really feel like one of the problems for the teacher this year, you cannot be a successful debate teacher and OI teacher. They are two completely different fields. And I think that as a first-year teacher, well, not a first-year teacher, but a first-year teacher at Grapevine High School, teaching in the midst of a pandemic, when all of your tournaments went to virtual, plus you're having to do debate, plus you're having to do OI, that's not possible. No one, Jane Boyd did it, but she had been teaching debate for 30 years. And it wasn't during a pandemic until the last few months of it. And I know what a challenge it was for her. And she had parent volunteers that were stepping in and helping. And it can't happen. And when we're back in person, it definitely can't happen, because you've got kids. If you've never judged a debate tournament, you can't even imagine. There are children all over these campuses, and they're pretty much in charge of getting themselves from A to point B, but just checking in and making sure that actually happened. To do it for both, I don't see that being a possibility. So I know that I'm down to my last few minutes. I appreciate the time tonight. I appreciate y'all putting this together. I think the forums are so important, and I'm really sad that all 5 of us, did not make it tonight. I think that although I might have been the last one of the 5, and after listening, people might have tuned me out. So maybe this ended up great. I have a website. If you want to check out my website, I've never had one before this time, so yay me. It's mindyforgcisd.com. If you want hats or shirts or buttons or a yard sign. There are forms to fill out, and I will get those delivered to you. I'd love to have campaign volunteers, and I'm just really looking forward to the election season. Got to make the best of it, and I love sharing about the good things going on in GCISD. We're getting it in elementary. That Aspire is a top program nationally, and we're going to get that same in middle school and high school. So let's work together and make that happen. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy. We appreciate your time. And we're
Oh,
going to let you go ahead and log off. And I just have a couple of closing words before we let you all get on with your evening. So I just want to thank everyone who joined us this evening. And a big thank you to all the candidates for participating this evening, and mostly for dedicating the time that it takes to run and fulfill the duties of the Board of Trustee. It's a huge time commitment. So we just want to thank them again. Would encourage you all again to take a moment to check out our website. It's gc-sage.org. You can find more information on the candidates in our voters guide. You can find links to their social media pages, to their websites. A couple of them have put up some written statement or things like that. So it's a great place to go if you want a quick and easy place to go connect with any of them, to be able to ask questions. And then lastly, just a very quick reminder that early voting starts on April 19th and it will run through April 27th. And voting day is May 1st. So don't forget to get out and vote. That's what we need everybody to do. So thank you so much for your time this evening. And I hope everybody has a great evening.